That I am the Divine Trust, A. Bay, doing business as Land, Air, Water Bureau. We proudly present to you the United States is not where or what you think it is. Most people are under the impression that they are within a geographical location on land when they're conducting their business affairs, and it turns out to be not the case. So let us prove it to you briefly. Here we go. We're going to start at 28 USC section 3002 definitions. For the purposes of this presentation, we're going to go right down to definition 15A. Again, that's 28 USC, that's United States Code, section 3002 definitions. Definition 15A, United States means A, a federal corporation. B, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the United States. Or an instrumentality of the United States. So here we have it. When you see those two words together, United States, you're talking about a federal corporation or another subsidiary corporation, agency, department, commission, board, or entity of the United States, or an instrumentality. That's everything. It's corporate. We're not talking about a geographical landmass. And for further detail, we're going to go right over to the Uniform Commercial Code, section 9-307, location of the debtor. We're going to go down to definition H, location of United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia. So that means no matter where you are, even in your mind geographically, when you are thinking that the United States is a landmass or has any ties to land, the ties to the land that you're referring to is actually inside of the District of Columbia, 10 square miles. Huh? That's right. The United States is located in the District of Columbia. Moving right along. We're going to go over to 18 United States Code section 9, vessel of the United States defined. The term vessel of the United States as used in this title means a vessel belonging in whole or in part to the United States or any citizen thereof or any corporation created by or under the laws of the United States or of any state, territory, district, or possession thereof. That's everything, people. That's every corporation. The name in all caps. The entities. Anything that you go down and register with the state, which is a subsidiary of the United States, it's all corporate, fictional activity, fictitious activity of vessels. That's what a vessel is. Belonging in whole or in part. If it has anything to do with the United States, it is a vessel of the United States. If it's any corporation created by or under the laws of the United States, of any state, territory, district, or possession thereof, we're talking about a vessel. A vessel. The birth certificate, the trade name is a vessel of the United States. We're not talking about people. This is all colorable corporate activity. For further definition, what is a vessel? So let's go over to Black's Law Dictionary, 2nd edition online. What is a vessel? A ship, a brig, a loop, or other craft used in navigation. The word is more comprehensive than a ship. So it's more to do than just a ship. The word vessel includes every description of watercraft or other artificial contrivances used or capable of being used as a means of transportation on water. So we say transportation on water contravenes. Let's look this word up, contravenes, right? What is a contravenes? So a contravenes, the use or skill to bring something about or create something. A device, especially in literary or artistic composition, which gives a sense of artificiality. It's not real. It's an artifice. It's a means to go about creating something. So what are we talking about? Something that's created. We're talking about something that was created as a means to transmit property and utility. So we're going to go right over to where this all started, which is the Organic Act of 1871, which gave the delegated authority for the United States corporation to come into existence. And when we go directly into the Organic Act of 1871, here is where it all began. And here it says, be it enacted by the Senate in the House of Representatives of the United States of America, not the United States, but the United States of America, in Congress assembled, that all that part of the territory of the United States included within the limits of the District of Columbia be and the same as hereby created into a government by the name of the District of Columbia, by which name it is hereby constituted a body corporate for municipal purposes, and may contract and be contracted with, sue and be sued, plead and be impleaded, have a seal and exercise all other powers of a municipal corporation not inconsistent with the Constitution and laws of the United States and the provisions of this act. So here it says the delegated authority for this corporation to exist came from the United States of America in Congress assembled, specifically by way of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 is where it was allowed to come into existence. So let's go over to the Constitution of the United States, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. Okay? And here we see to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square as may by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be, for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. So we see here that it says this District of Columbia corporation, municipal corporation, was allowed to come into existence in the Constitution for and of the United States of America. Well, some may say, well, how was this allowed to happen? Well, people, not everyone wants to take on the responsibility of being sovereign and governing their own affairs. A lot of people, to this day, most of you within the sound of my voice, do not want to take on the responsibility of being the master and owner of your own vessel, which is the trade name, which is the name in all capital letters, evidence on the ID, the driver's license, the birth certificate. So because you choose not to become the master of your own vessel, the owner of your own vessel, a separate, subsidiary, artificial, government, colorable jurisdiction had to have been created for dead people, artificial persons. Now, one may say, well, how does that happen when it says here that it is to be not to exceed 10 miles square? Well, if we look a little closer, we'll also see that it says by cession of particular states, you can become under the jurisdiction of the District of Columbia. So we say, well, what is cession? Let's look up this word cession. It's a tricky thing, people. Let's not be confused. So the word cession, we're going to go right back to the law dictionary. And look up this word cession and discover that the word actually means the act of ceding, a yielding or giving up, a surrender, a relinquishment of property or rights in the civil law, an assignment, the act by which a party transfers property to another, the surrender or assignment of property for the benefit of one's creditors. Who are the creditors? The creditors are the international bankers who are the owners of this private for-profit municipal corporation. So the states who are sovereign contracted into the District of Columbia, aka state of wherever you are, state of Illinois, state of New York, state of California, state of Florida, so on and so forth. When you see the state of before the name of the state, you know you are dealing with the municipal corporation through cession, through contract, to have relinquished your sovereign capacity to enter into the colorable jurisdiction of the municipal corporation doing business as the District of Columbia. So there you have it. This is all colorable jurisdiction. And while we're at it, while we're on the Organic Act of 1871, few things stand out. Not only is it a corporation, let's go down to Section 16. And in Section 16, it states that the district shall never pay, assume, or become responsible for the debts or liabilities of, or in any manner give loan or extend its credit to or in aid of any public or other corporation, association, or individual. Why is that important? A lot of you have become aware of House Joint Resolution 192 and how the government agreed to discharge your debts dollar for dollar. Guess what? Most of you are in the District of Columbia dealing with the municipal corporation, which is the public side. If you want to get into discharging debt, that happens for real people. That happens for people with the nationality, the people who the framers of the Constitution intended to be the beneficiaries of the public trust. Not those who are colorable artificial persons. So the district does not assume responsibility for the debts of its colorable citizens. Section 17. And be it further enacted that the Legislative Assembly shall not pass special laws in any of the following cases. To say, for granting divorces, regulating the practice in courts of justice, regulating the jurisdiction of duties of justices of the peace, police, magistrates, or constables. They're letting you know that they don't have anything to do with regulating these things, which are colorable and administrative in nature. Also, the Legislative Assembly shall have no power to release or extinguish in whole or in part the indebtedness, liability, or obligation of any corporation or individual to the district or to any municipal corporation therein, nor shall have the Legislative Assembly have power to establish any bank of circulation, nor to authorize any company or individual to issue notes for circulation as money or currency. They're going on even further to let you know that they assume nothing to do with the debt of its colorable citizenry. Section 20. It's also stating that the said Legislative Assembly shall not have power to pass any ex post facto law, nor law impairing the obligation of contracts, nor to tax the property of the United States. A lot of you are paying taxes, so it has no authority or obligation impairing the obligation of contracts, or to tax the property, or to tax the lands or other property of non-residents higher than the lands of other property or residents. That's very interesting. So how are you being taxed? How is this happening? Moving right along. Section 24. Be it further enacted that the said Legislative Assembly shall have power to provide for the appointment of as many justices of peace and notaries public for said district as may be deemed necessary to define their jurisdiction and prescribe their duties. But justices of the peace shall not have jurisdiction of any controversy in which the title of land may be in dispute, or in which the debt or some claim shall exceed $100. When you have a nationality, there is land in dispute. When you are being foreclosed, when you are being evicted, when you are dealing with a mortgage or rent, you're dealing with titles to land. So how are they exercising jurisdiction on land and property? If it says here in the Organic Act that they do not have jurisdiction of any controversy in which the title of land may be in dispute, they are assuming the jurisdiction by the trade name, because you yourself, unfortunately, more often than not, are within the federal territory, 10 miles square, of the District of Columbia. Let's move along to Section 28, also interesting. And be it further enacted that the said Legislative Assembly shall have power to create by general law, modify, repeal, or amend within said district corporations aggregate for religious, charitable, educational, industrial, or commercial purposes, and to define their powers and liabilities. So if you are within the 10 mile square of the District of Columbia, your spirituality is inside of a 10-mile box, colorable jurisdiction of a municipal corporation. You're spiritually dead. You're spiritually cut off. There is a separation of church and state, spirituality and state. Not if you're in the colorable jurisdiction of a municipal corporation, because it says here in Section 28, they have the power to create by general law, modify, repeal, or amend only within the district corporations aggregate for religious, charitable, educational, industrial, or commercial purposes. That goes for those as well who want to start chartered schools or begin schools and educate people on natural laws and things of that nature. If you want to set up schools, I can think of many leaders, so-called leaders, in mind that are here campaigning to start schools. If you want to not be regulated, if you want to start a religion even, or to start a religious organization even, and not be regulated, you cannot do it within the District of Columbia. Section 32, moving along. All money is governed by the Secretary of the Treasury. The Secretary of the Treasury is running the whole show. Okay? And the governor and secretary of the district shall, in the disbursement of all monies appropriated by Congress and entrusted to them, be governed solely by the instructions of the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States. The Secretary of the Treasury is regulating all the commerce inside of the federal district, in which the aforesaid monies shall have been expended, and no expenditure shall be made by the said legislative assembly of funds appropriated by Congress for objects not especially authorized by acts of Congress making the appropriations, nor beyond the sums thus appropriated for said objects. The Treasury is running the show. Section 39. No voters in any name other than their own. Many of you are going out, filling out ballots to vote. Did you know you're committing a colorable crime? Why? Because you are impersonating someone. Your name in all caps is not you. It's an entity. We just demonstrated that it's a vessel. So Section 39, and be it further enacted that if at any election hereafter held in the District of Columbia, that state of where you are, any person shall knowingly personate and vote or attempt to vote in the name of any other person, whether living, dead, or fictitious. Your name in all caps, all capital letters, is fictitious. Whether you're living, dead, or fictitious, or vote more than once at the same election for any candidate for the same office, or vote at a place where he may not be entitled to vote, or vote without having a lawful right to vote, or do any unlawful act to secure a right or opportunity to vote for himself or any other person, or by force, threats, menace, or intimidation, bribery, reward, or offer, or promise thereof, or otherwise unlawfully prevent any qualified voter of the District of Columbia from freely exercising the right of suffrage, or by any such means induce any voter to refuse to exercise such right, or compel or induce by any such means or otherwise any officer or any election in said district to receive a vote from a person not legally qualified or entitled to vote, or interfere in any manner with any officer of said elections in the discharge of his duties, or by any unlawful means induce any officer of an election or officer whose duty it is to ascertain, announce, or declare the result of any such election, or give or make any certificate, document, or evidence in relation thereto, to violate or refuse to comply with his duty, or any law regulating the same, or knowingly and willingly receive the vote of any person not entitled to vote, or refuse to receive the vote of any person entitled to vote, or aid, counsel, procure, or advise any such voter, person, or officer to do any act hereby made a crime. It's made a crime, people. You are not the name. It's a fictitious, dead entity, colorable. Such person shall be deemed guilty of a crime and shall for such crime be liable to prosecution in any court of the United States of competent jurisdiction, and on conviction thereof shall be punished by a fine not exceeding $500, or by imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 years, or both, in the discretion of the court, and shall pay the cost of the prosecution. We are out here unknowingly filling out forms, voting, being coerced to vote and animate a fictitious entity. That's colorable. That's a crime. According to the Organic Act of 1871 that created the District of Columbia, which is the United States Federal Corporation. Moving right along. The District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871. You see here that the seal is the same seal that most of us are aware of, if not for anything, circulating notes on the $1 bill. So this is the seal of the United States and the seal of the District of Columbia. This is the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., here, Virginia and Maryland. The Virgin Mary, the Holy See Corporation, doing business on the organic lands of the North Gate, Turtle Island, by way of the Organic Act of 1871. When you are inside of the District of Columbia, the home rule applies. What does that mean? This is Wikipedia. The District of Columbia home rule is District of Columbia residents' ability to govern their local affairs. As the federal capital, the Constitution grants the United States Congress exclusive jurisdiction over the district in all cases whatsoever. So the United States Congress is governing the state of wherever you are, which is still in the District of Columbia or the United States. This is how you come under the jurisdiction, by the home rule, because by the issuance and usage of these colorable identities, it ties you into the home rule jurisdiction of the United States by way of the driver's license, the ID, the social security number, the birth certificate, colorable identities that draw you into the corporate war status in the District of Columbia. So here we have here in the District of Columbia versus Thompson's Company. Just interesting just to see how it goes in regards to the government is in the District of Columbia. It has national power, but to all the powers of legislation which may be exercised by a state in dealing with its own affairs. So here it is, when it's dealing with its own affairs, it has national power. That means it can reach out its arms to wherever you are, and what you thought was the country, wherever you are, what's keeping you within this federal territory is the use of these colorable identities, because you are in a colorable nation state jurisdiction that had to be created to bring you into the constitutional fold of government, albeit a colorable jurisdiction, whereas without the colorable jurisdiction, where would you be? This jurisdiction had to be created and established to bring those who did not want to remain in their sovereign capacity into the constitutional fold of government. So it says in the Organic Act that it is a municipal corporation, right? So it's a municipal corporation for municipal purposes. So what is a municipal corporation? A title given to a public corporation. It's telling you in plain language, the United States, the District of Columbia, are colorable public corporations. So what is municipal? This is Black's Law Dictionary, by the way, 2nd edition. A public corporation created by government for political purposes and having subordinate and local powers of legislation. An incorporation of persons. What is persons? Artificial. You have natural persons, you have artificial persons. Of persons inhabitants of a particular place or connected with the particular district, enabling them to conduct its local civil government. A body of persons in a town having the powers of acting as one person, of holding and transmitting property, and of regulating the government of the town. Such corporations existed in the chief towns of England. So it tells you this is English law. These municipal corporations were created in England. How did it make its way onto the organic lands of the North Gate, Turtle Island? Through the District of Columbia. Colorable municipal corporate charters operating on land for colorable persons. Nothing to do with the Bill of Rights, nothing to do with the rights secured by the organic Constitution for the United States of America. The people are stuck under this quasi-jurisdiction, colorable, subsidiary, municipal, corporate jurisdiction. So let's go over to Title 46 of the United States Code, Section 10101, definitions. We saw that these are vessels of the United States that we're dealing with. So not only are they vessels, i.e. the birth certificate, i.e. the trade name thereof, there are different definitions. So let's look at master. 1 means the individual having command of a vessel. You are to be the master of the vessel. You're doing business in the name and you're not the master, which is a crime because you are doing business in a name that is not yours, a colorable name, which places you inside of the District of Columbia, outside of the protections of the Constitution for the United States of America, dealing in the Bill of Rights, the ability to discharge debt, and not have statutes, codes, and ordinances put on natural people. 2, owner means the person to whom the vessel belongs. Are you the owner of the vessel? Are you the master of the vessel? Or are you doing business in the name with no chain of title, with you being the master or the owner? Most of you are seamen at best. And the term seaman at 3 means an individual. And for clarification, it says except scientific personnel. So it lets you know we're not talking about people on ships at sea in its literal sense. This is all colorable. So it means an individual. What's the term used when you do your taxes? You're an individual. So you're a seaman. Except scientific personnel, a sailing school instructor, or a sailing school student.
It's 7 o'clock.
It's 7 o'clock where I am. Or a sailing school student engaged or employed in any capacity on board a vessel. Engaged or employed in any capacity on board a vessel. So if you are having anything to do with the trade name, in all caps, you are a seaman. And 4, fishing vessel includes a fish tender vessel or a fish processing vessel. For purposes of this presentation, you're either going to be a master, an owner, or a seaman when dealing in the colorable jurisdiction of the District of Columbia of the vessels that are being traded openly because they're in the public. We're going to go over to 18 USC Section 7, Special Maritime and Territorial Jurisdiction of the United States. Some may say, well, hey, this is talking about water. This is talking about seamen. This is talking about vessels. Guess what? A lot of you are going into court challenging the jurisdiction of the court, trying to get these public administrators to admit on the record what the jurisdiction is, and are having difficulty getting them to tell you the nature and cause of the allegations. You say you're violating my constitutional rights to know the nature and cause of the charges that are being brought against me. Guess what? You need not wonder any further, because it says here, 18 U.S.C. Section 7, this is a special maritime and territorial jurisdiction of the United States defined. The term special maritime and territorial jurisdiction of the United States, as used in this title, includes the high seas and any other waters within the admiralty and maritime jurisdiction of the United States and out of the jurisdiction of any particular state, and any vessel belonging in whole or in part to the United States or any citizen thereof, or to any corporation created by or under the laws of the United States or of any state, territory, district, or possession thereof, when such vessel is within the admiralty and maritime jurisdiction of the United States and out of the jurisdiction of any particular state. Now let's break this down. Okay? It's telling you that the jurisdiction of the United States is maritime admiralty, and it is exercising its maritime admiralty jurisdiction by usage of the vessels that belong in whole or in a part to the United States or to any citizen of the United States. That's everything moving, people in corporate activity, or any corporation created by or under the laws of the United States. That's every business with the title filed with the Secretary of any of the respective state ofs within the Federal District of Columbia or the United States. So they are exercising their colorable maritime, territorial, admiralty jurisdiction by usage of the vessels in maritime admiralty jurisdiction. It is also stating that it is exercising its jurisdiction when it is outside of the jurisdiction of any particular state, because the states are still organically within the republic, protected by the Constitution for the United States of America. But when you are a colorable person, when you are not a natural person, you are dealing in the District of Columbia. When you have a corporation, it's nothing wrong with creating a business to do business. But when you do, you are within the maritime admiralty colorable jurisdiction of corporations, because it's not dealing with people. It's not dealing with Moors. 2, any vessel registered, licensed, or enrolled under the laws of the United States and being on a voyage upon the waters of any of the Great Lakes. Okay? You're in the colorable jurisdiction of maritime admiralty. Any lands reserved or acquired for the use of the United States and under the exclusive or concurrent jurisdiction thereof, or any place purchased or otherwise acquired by the United States by consent of the legislature of the state, in which the same shall be for the erection of a fort, magazine, arsenal, dockyard, or other needful building. So the states have agreed in their sovereign capacity to operate corporate charters to allow the colorable maritime admiralty, private, for-profit, corporate, state, District of Columbia, United States, territorial jurisdiction to exercise its jurisdiction on land by usage of the vessels, by the secession of the states, by the contracting of the states to allow them into said territories. Let's move along. Maritime transport. Okay? We need to know more about maritime admiralty jurisdiction. It says here, Wikipedia, maritime transport, or more generally, Fluvial transport, waterborne transport is the transport of people, passengers, goods via waterways, water, currency. We're talking about commercial activities. Encyclopedia.com, maritime commerce. Water is dealing in commerce. Here it says this is from American history through literature, 1820 to 1870. Okay? It is an unfortunate truth that voyages of discovery by way of unum sanctum and the doctrine of discovery of the Holy See, otherwise known as the Catholic Church, voyages of discovery and engagements of great naval fleets too often have at base a commercial motive. In a sense, then, literature of the sea is fundamentally based on commerce. Its setting, characters, and plots molded to match particular maritime trades. Even yachting is the most conspicuous reward of successful commercial enterprise. At the beginning of the 19th century, maritime commerce undertaken by English-speaking peoples was still largely a function of the British Empire. So here it goes again. English, England, English-speaking people, the British Empire. The colonial operations on the organic lands against the national people of Turtle Island, the Moors. The organic lands happened by way of the British Empire. So all of this private, for-profit, colorable, nation-state business is for artificial persons still being regulated by the English of the British Empire and the Christian Crusades. Colorable jurisdiction of creatures, as it states, human creatures in Unum Sanctum on Pope Boniface III. The worldwide commercial empire predicted for Portugal by the poet Luís Vaz de Camões in the Luísade had been achieved by the British in the 18th century and had been celebrated by William Julius Mickle. More so to do with the British Empire extending their colorable jurisdiction on land for colorable human creatures, as stated in Unum Sanctum. This is color of law. Jurisdiction is all colorable. So here it is. What is color of law? Second edition of Black's Law Dictionary. The appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. If you are a United States citizen, you are within the federal territory of the municipal corporation of the District of Columbia, a private for-profit corporation of private shareholders. Private shareholders for public persons who are not the masters or the owners of the vessel. Artificial personage. You are being kept from your heirship because you yourself will not step forth and take possession of the vessel as the master or the owner to receive your earthly inheritance secured by the Constitution for the United States of America. To do so, you must have a nationality. You have to have a nationality to come under the protections of the Constitution for the United States of America and get out of the District of Columbia or the United States, which is not designed for people. It is designed for persons, artificial persons. At that, we have mastered the process of possessing the vessel. of becoming the owner of the vessel, of becoming the master of the vessel. This is what we do at Land Air Water Bureau. If you're needing assistance on facilitating, taking possession of your vessel to receive what was entitled for you, which was secured for you, which is your inheritance, get with us at Land Air Water Bureau. You can contact us at landairwater3@gmail.com. You can go to the website, landairwaterbureau.com. Give us a shout out. We will provide counsel to get you in your proper status, get your status corrected to ensure you of your inalienable right that is secured by the Constitution to bring you back onto the land and out of the artificial personage of the District of Columbia. It's been a pleasure bringing this to you today on 13/0/68/16, otherwise known as May 15th, 2019. landairwaterbureau.com, landairwater3@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Divine love.